Jason Reitman, Dana. Jason Reitman, who is I would say a friend of mine and smart guy, a director, writer. Just did this SNL movie, which sort of fell in our lap because it's right up our alley.
What do you mean by that? I don't understand.
Well, you used to be on SNL and
1947. No, yeah, it was. So we got a advanced copy of the movie, or so we could watch it at home because we're running around. And it was very, very interesting having been in 8H for 7 years. And they made a set that looked like, I thought they were filming in 8H.
Yeah, me too.
It was so accurate.
Yeah, he did a great job with that staircases, the actually hallway, the page desk, that whole. And then when we went back to the show, or I did recently, I just saw that again. I was like, God, it was exactly right. He's done some great stuff. That movie is very interesting, worth the watch. And then he's done Ghostbusters, Juno, which was a smash, Up in the Air with George Clooney, I think maybe Anna Kendrick. And so he's just high quality. I worked on something with him once, or at least we talked about something, and love to get involved with this guy. He's just a smart, good guy to hitch your wagon to. And
you know, it was interesting because of all his resume and all the stuff he's done. He's very successful, but just never lost his fascination for this live, wacky, crazy idea of a TV show that Lorne Michaels invented, basically. You know, going on live at 11:30, under rehearsed, under everything. You know, like Lorne's famous quote: "The show does not go on because it's ready; it's because it's 11:30." So Jason has a fascination with it, and he tried to capture the spirit of that first show, the crazy, chaotic spirit. And so we talk all about that. We break it down, David.
We break it into little microscopic pieces. So here he is, Jason Reitman.
David, are you still around the corner from me?
No, I actually moved from that mansion to another one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. No, you live in the nice area, and I've hit the skids. I was going to email you about this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I moved about a mile away. It's not great.
Okay.
It's not like,
well,
okay.
You should crowdsource something. I think people would spend money on seeing you in a nice place.
See? Dana doesn't care.
It's David's world. We just live in it. I'll just say it. I know it's a hackney cliche. So how are you today, Jason? Here's the most trite thing I could say to you. Are you looking forward to the holidays?
I am.
Question. Are you
actually?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in that, I'm in that place where the movie's out and there's nothing left to do with it, and now I have to think of something else to do.
Okay, the good news is I saw it last night. I was mesmerized by it, and I thought, oh, thank God, I love it.
By the way, this is the scariest fucking podcast I could go on because I haven't done anything yet with two SNLers. I'm on with two legends, two real deal who know the fucking show. So I'm not trying to shine you on. I'm genuinely intimidated by this.
No, I've never seen a movie like this where I was so, it was so familiar, and I got goosebumps at times. Got emotional at times. So I was realizing that David and I are in a different lane where we're experientially, it's so familiar, it's different, but you really captured it though. The chaos of it. It still is just chaotic as fuck.
So here's the common thing that I keep on hearing back from anyone who worked at SNL. I mean, crew cast, anything. The stairwell between the 8th and 9th floor. And we got that down to like the exact details, like the handrail, everything, where anyone who's ever worked there has smoked in there, cried in there, broken up with their boyfriend in there, because there's no privacy at SNL. And every time there's a character would walk in the stairwell, they said they would fuck them up.
There's a co-ed bathroom now, and it's just one small bathroom for everybody, and it's down the hall. Yeah, so you have.
Where is it down by Lorne's office?
No, the other way. It's on 8H, but just around the corner.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, to your point. Yeah, there's no real privacy, and sometimes in the stairwell, you'll see a writer that you've been wanting to see for a sec, and then you'll have a little powwow right there in the stairwell. Some writing happens there as well. Was that in the movie, Jason?
Hold on.
You know what, Jason? I will tell you, just to bore everyone, on 8H, when you go down toward the elevators, you can take a left and there's a men's room, but it's bigger, it's got a couple. I would go into the stall, close it in my suit or whatever for Weekend Update and just go over it during the commercial and then run back. Because I had to get one minute of silence because everyone's grabbing you and there's noise and there's music and there's crowds and there's other casts. So you go, I just have to focus. So you don't want to get out there and look at the cards and go, oh my God, I don't know this as well as I thought I did or something, Same thing with sketches. So you go over there and cram and then come out and go, okay, more distractions. But they
By the way, I do the same thing while I'm directing.
You need a second.
Yeah, because if you're a director, everyone is reaching out to you at any given moment, and everyone has a question. They're looking at you, and they're always trying to measure whether this is a time to ask you a question, and they can't do that when you're in the bathroom. So I use my few bathroom breaks during the day as the moment to I pull out the sides, and I go, what the hell am I making here?
And you forget to go to the bathroom because I go, wait, why did I come in here? I just came in to study.
I was like, oh yeah.
But I will say,
because
go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, just that Lorne Michaels in the movie and in real life is just, he's that person you want to get a moment with. And so when Kamala Harris was on the soundstage, which was such an intense thing with all the Secret Service and all the energy around that moment a couple of weeks ago, they ran it and everyone was so there was a tension because Secret Service and Army men were there, flak jacket, helmet, and night goggles with machine guns.
Right.
And I came out of the makeup room on 8, and I saw them lined up like 6 or 8 on both sides, holding machine guns. And I said, "Can I go?" "Yeah, you can go." And I'm in the Biden outfit, and I literally saluted them as a president, not as a joke. It was just like kind of nervous energy, but we just thought. A cast member, I thought, well, we should kind of laugh a little bit while they rehearse this because everyone was dead quiet because it got laughs, And I said to him, I don't know if we should ask Lorne. I'm going to ask him. But Lorne was so deep into the whole thing, he didn't want to hear any notes at that moment.
Right.
Because he had a lot of stuff to think about. That was an intense night. So I think you did a really good job capturing Lorne's obsession with the show, basically.
Especially then.
Yeah, but still now.
And not knowing what it was and not, I thought, you could have, I had no idea what to expect. And there's not a lot of just like set shot. It really moves, which is an understatement. There's tons of throwaway lines and there's laughs all the way through, but they're so run over. You got to pay attention. Right. And it's just all movement. There's no like real static, not that many static shots. I did love Willem Dafoe and Lorne in an elevator, just a side 2 shot. I like that sometimes when directors don't not waste time, but go in for like this shot. That's just so typical, over, close up, back and forth. I like things playing like you have to just pay attention because you're like really watching people talk and you can understand it. You don't need to be close up of them. So that I liked, and I liked just seeing every cast member played and who's playing him and sort of forgetting it and just thinking it's the real Chevy, it's the real everybody. Very cool though. Very cool.
Thanks.
I didn't know 90% of that. That first show, it all takes place, if people don't know, what is it, the hour and a half before the show.
How obsessed were you both with SNL before you auditioned?
Finally a question for us. Thank you.
When I look on it now, like I met Lorne in 86. So he'd done 5 years. He had his sabbatical and came back. But it still seemed like it was 100 years in my mind because of my college years watching the original Saturday Night Live. And so it was still like this monumental thing to actually try to get on. And I auditioned a couple times. I auditioned once at the Comedy Store, a cattle call with comedians doing 5 minutes with no MC. And I followed Sam Kinison.
No way.
At midnight in Keniston Prime. I died 1,000 deaths. Wasn't that special? Well, I was going to show you as a director, you must, it's difficult, but you landed it. You're doing actors or comic actors, improvising, throwaway, doing comedy for film. There's that to try to get it integrated so it feels really poppy. but there was some ones that I really noticed that just like felt real, felt spontaneous. That was all just you yelling at them or just one camera? Or...
I'll tell you how we made it and how we even got into this in the first place. You know, I grew up obsessed with SNL, and I also grew up around some of those actors because my dad was obviously directing some of them. But when I was a kid and I would watch it, every once in a while there would be these bumpers where you would see the crew for a second. A sketch would end, the camera would pull back, and sometimes you would even hear the director from the control room, and they would be like, you know, this actor go here, this actor go here, and you'd see the crew and you see them moving a set. And the moment that happened, I went, I want to know who the fuck those people are. Like, I want to, how is this thing being made? Because I was obsessed with the concept that on Tuesday you start with nothing, and by Saturday you have a finished show. And right after I directed Juno, my agent asked me, what do you want to do next? And I told him, I said, look, I had two dreams as a kid. One was to direct movies, and the other was to be a writer for Saturday Night Live. And I said, you ask Lorne if there's any chance he'd let me come and write, even for like a week. And Lorne was really kind, and he said, yeah, you can come to space camp. And so I went, I spent 1 week there, and it was one of the greatest weeks of my life. And I think it was coming off of that, I thought, all right, I want to make a movie. It's not as much like a celebration of the comedy, but like a celebration of how this show is actually made and the fact that it came so close to not ever existing.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm doing it now just sort of as a guest, I suppose, doing Biden and stuff. And yeah, you can't prepare for it. I'm going to do a lot of stand up or whatever. You can't really prepare for it because it's changing every second. They throw you out there. You're kind of like, there's the cards. You're trying to be loose, trying not to push, trying to land it. So it's intense. It's just still really intense.
Well, that's actually, I was really curious because when I've been watching you do this recently, I wonder if you feel like you're falling back into how comfortable you were back in the day. Does it feel like day one for you, or does it even feel further out of reach because it's something you used to feel comfortable doing, and now you have to jump right in with a new cast, new set of writers?
That's a good question. I'm actually podcasting on my side. I'm on your podcast, no, but if to me it's always solving the puzzle in the moment. If it's my character. Like, what is the musicality or rhythms I have to hit? What are the chops? And the first time I went out there, it felt familiar, but it still was right as they're going to push you out. You're going to enter a scene. There still is, okay, I'm not on camera to 10 million people. I'll be on it in a second.
Right.
I've got this little moment. Don't push, have fun. So I fell into it pretty quickly. But I still have, I'm not completely where I was when I stepped off in 93. That was another level because you're doing 4 or 5 sketches a show, you know.
Did you guys ever get to a point where, I can't even imagine. Like you have to go an hour waiting for your one moment.
All week, you know, Dana's waiting. Like if you come back to host, it's the opposite. You're in, I think the first time I hosted, I was in 13. I've never been in more than 3 sketches, I think, when I was on the show, or maybe 4.
Oh,
but
that's wild.
Dana was always packed in a lot, but I was sort of used sparingly. And so 13 overwhelmed me. And now Dana's waiting for 1. So all week, and it's maybe 1 paragraph. You go, Jesus, I got to nail. There's no second take. If that show, I always say, if it had second takes, it would be so much better. Because if you could just pick from one, because sometimes you walk into a sketch and you're like on a scene in a movie, sometimes you go, you know what, can I come in again? You know, I'm not in the right space. I came in a little early. And on those, you just go in and go, oh, fuck, it's not going right. And this is the one.
Let me ask you. So would you rather kill at rehearsal, kill at dress, and know, oh my God, somehow I have to replicate how well that worked. I don't know exactly why the magic happened. Or would you rather hit it at like 70% at dress and go, oh, I know exactly how to take it to 100 now?
Definitely the second one, 70%. It's a horrible feeling when it goes just perfect at dress. Because you're like,
this is never going to be that good again.
It's more than horrible. It's sickening. Also, you want to be good enough at dress to where you get on the show, because you don't want to save too much, because then it gets cut and you're like, oh, fuck, I really laid down on that. But some of these sketches, we're going to get on. There's some that just kill, but you're like, oh my God, I just hope it does table read kill, rehearsal with the crew, and then dress, and then air. And it's hard to keep it going every single one and have it work.
And, for me, it's like I try to tell myself it's not literal. The cue cards are just suggestions, because when you get out there and you have this part you have to do, you can kind of just sort of rush just slightly and not really connect with the audience. It's sort of a ballsy move to take a moment or extenuate a beat just a little bit, because that keeps it alive and the audience senses it when you're having fun and surprising yourself.
Do you get to have fun now when you're doing it, Dana? Because I have to imagine first time around when you're a cast member and you have no idea what the sky is. Like, you don't know yet that you're going to have success in films. You don't know yet all the other things are going to happen, that you're going to be like an all-timer. So that's always going in the back of your head of like, oh, like, is this going to work or not? I'm wondering for both of you, like, to go back now, does it feel like I am who I am now? I can go out and have fun. Or is it just as high pressure? I need to get a win. I need to crush it.
I would say it's both. It's a little bit, I'm playing with house money. I understand that. In the beginning, I didn't know I was with Phil Hartman, or the Jan Hook. So we didn't know where it was going. By 93, it was feeling pretty good. But now it's still the thing. If I'm doing Biden, I'm trying to get the language and and sort of ride the wave if it comes to me. If I'm doing, no joke, I'm not getting around here, my eyes get big, and I hold that, then it's still kind of the same process. So both things are true. Playing with house money, no, I'm way down the other side of it. It's kind of like you would say to Steven Spielberg, is it any better now? Or is it any easier now? He's still just trying to solve problems. Isn't that what directors do?
David, how often do you miss it?
Everything is so different than SNL that I liked. I liked it because I had a good, fun batch of people, and I'm glad I kind of stayed close with them. But I don't miss as much because I just remember sort of the hard parts, and I also remember the great parts. You forget, it's like surgery. You're like happy after, but during it, you go, God, it was tough. But I'm just happy it happened, and I got 6 great years out of it, and then it got me on something else, and then trying to stay afloat is the next big challenge, because you could do your own show and it doesn't work, and then suddenly all your heat's gone and you're not doing anything, and it's tough. It's hard not to fall off a cliff after.
How often are you talking to current cast members about that? How often do they reach out and go, hey, it's all going well, I'm on the show, I feel confident, I'm getting on every week, what happens from here?
I think Dana gets it more because they ask him about impressions and what to expect and these kind of things. But when we have them on the show,
people that are really young.
Yeah, right now he's with people that are really young that are.
Yeah,
some haven't even been on a sketch yet. They're just like, what am I doing here? Because there's so many casts. It's very, very frustrating for sure. I'm sure I feel for them sometimes.
50 years in, you got 200 cast members before you or whatever. When I was on it, it was the original, which is probably the best, or whatever the best means, or the most potent. And then, of course, Eddie's years in Piscopo, and then the Billy Crystal year, then the Strange year. And then, so it seems young in its history when I was there now. But I was going to ask you, because what's interesting to me is, okay, now we got to cast these people,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I wonder, when was it down to 3 people, or was it instant? Like the gentleman, it's hard for me to connect the names. Like a gentleman who plays Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Landed so well. They all did really. Yeah. I mean, I was laughing. Oh, that's Billy Crystal. Yeah, that's I was laughing the whole time.
Well, so I mean, look, a few things are happening. I mean, one, I'm approaching this as a movie, and I'm thinking about this as this is a movie specifically about the 90 minutes leading up to the first episode. So the movie, a concept from the original concept, which is always the movie starts at 10 p.m. with Lorne Michaels out on 50th Street looking for Andy Kaufman. The movie's going to end, last line of the movie, 11:30, live from New York on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. So in knowing that, it's not about how do we tell the whole history of SNL. It's not, how do we recapture Chevy Chase? It's going, okay, who is Dan Aykroyd at 11 p.m.? How vulnerable he is, how scared is he, how confident is he?
On the first show, where is he right in this moment in time?
Right before the world changes. There's a moment where SNL doesn't exist, and then there's a moment where it does exist. It's a shuttle launch. It's the first walk on the moon. where is everyone's heart at? Where is Lorne Michaels when he's actually vulnerable for maybe the last time before he becomes as confident as he is? And what is this strange group of people, some that worked, some that didn't? I mean, geniuses like Jim Henson that have, like, you know, it's not going to click, it's not going to work, are in the same room as people who are literally just, like I always said, this is a shuttle launch. Like, that's what we're watching. So with Dan Aykroyd, it becomes a question of, you know, not can you do Bassomatic, but rather, can you capture his energy and his verbosity and his intelligence and his vulnerability? And Dylan O'Brien, who, you know, Dylan O'Brien's like a heartthrob. Dylan O'Brien was, you know, in like Maze Runner and Teen Wolf, and like, you know, I don't think people think of him as a comedian, but understood that Aykroyd's on the spectrum and understood how Aykroyd spoke, and and also understood Aykroyd's sex appeal, which I think no one else did. No other actor came in and understood that, like, Aykroyd could get it. Like, women loved him, and like, that's an important part of who he was. And so
tall, good looking, and charming, and funny, and talented,
and so smart, and kind of willing to play both ends of the spectrum of comedy, of being like uber confident but also weird. Like, we interviewed every living person who was in the building October 11th, 1975. So and not only the cast, not only the writers, but costumers, production design, members of Billy Preston's band. We interviewed Howard Shore, we interviewed Paul Schaefer. Like, there was NBC pages we literally got a hold of who could just give us a taste of, like, what was it like? How were people acting? How confident or unconfident were people? And that's what leads to the casting. Not, can you nail the Chevy Chase fall, or can you nail Gilda Radner doing Rosanna Dennett? You know, like,
or you hear a random story that actually did happen, and no one knows about it. Just some page tells you, oh, I don't know if you know this, but over by the elevators, then you're like, oh, we should put that in. It's great texture. It's just something that did happen. It's weird. And then because you're moving the camera through this whole, there's always, you know, everyone has to be good because, you know, you got to know when the camera's hitting you for the movie, not the show. But, you know, when you're going through the hallways and you go into makeup, then you pan in, you're going to the host dressing room, then George Carlin walks past and you're like trying to catch people going, oh my God, this is sort of the chaos of it all. It's hard to be... well, the idea was to drop you in it.
Like, we wanted the audience to feel not like they were being presented a movie, but rather, I just remember the first time I was there, it just felt like, holy shit, I'm here and everyone's moving past me. And it's people I recognize, people I don't recognize. And being at SNL, no one sits down. Like, you're not allowed to sit down. It's just constant movement. And that's what I wanted the audience to feel, is like layers of action. And so we tried to give 30 different characters actual arcs, but sometimes they're the foreground, sometimes the background, but literally every actor works every single day. There's no trailers. You're just there. And we rebuilt the entirety of 8H, 8th floor, 9th floor. It's all 1/360
That looked great. Looked exactly. I thought it was real. I'm like, oh, they must have built this, but there's so much shit they'd have to put in here, like those makeup rooms and the wardrobe and everything, and all the things on the walls. And I'm just like, God damn, because it was like in real time. One time you moved and I go, they're on that side. Okay. Oh, they're coming by where we used to put catering along the wall. Oh, they're coming back. So it was real. In that respect, like, it didn't even matter, I guess, but it does. That if someone knew it, they go, because I would see like Herb Sargent was still there with us. He lays out.
Oh,
Chevy
I didn't realize that Herb was there when you guys were there.
Yeah. We took his office.
He was the update writer. He's in charge of update.
Yeah. And he was like, kind of grousey, but after about a year, he moved out of that office and me and Farley moved in. Oh yeah. And then Sandler and Rock took the back part. It's like a small 2 little offices with the door between them, but you have to go through ours. So that was 4 of us crammed, where he had all these papers and shit, just doing update and newspapers. But I saw him. I think I told Dana before this, I saw Audrey Pert Dickman. I was working with, because she was there with me. And she
was there with,
no kidding.
Yeah, right. And I was like, oh my God, was she there from the beginning? Because you could see, was Joe Dixo in that? Was Bobby Van
Joe
Rye?
Dixo is day one. In fact, is great. Aykroyd, so we were finishing up this last Ghostbusters movie that I produced with Aykroyd, and I showed him the model of the whole set, and I interviewed Aykroyd a bunch of times. And finally I was like, hey, can you give me an impersonation of Joe Dixo for the actor who's going to play him? And Aykroyd just like just jumps right in that 2 minutes, and he like just starts doing the whole thing. And I was like, what about Davey? How about Davey Wilson? Can you give me Davey Wilson?
Oh, Davey
Wilson. And he starts doing like Davey Wilson, and like,
this isn't gonna work. What do you want to put? What? Where?
Yeah.
You want to use? I don't know.
Yeah. How about that? Between dress and air meeting, Davey Wilson's got a script out right next to Lorne's desk. And it's that bindered script that says Saturday Night Live in a circle. And he's like this. And he goes, well, we're going to have to jump. We're going to have to put Gap Girls right after. And he's like, I don't think we can get camera. I don't think we can do it, Lorne. And he would laugh, and Smigel would yell at him, come on, Davey. He's like, well, you're asking too much here. But I didn't know Davey was there from the beginning. How stupid am I?
I think there's something about Lorne's, I'm not sure if part of it is loyalty. And you guys know this better than I do, but someone told me once, Lorne has the same routine every day because he thinks if he did it differently, tomorrow morning he wouldn't wake up Lorne Michaels. And I thought that was really interestingly said. And the first time I went to SNL, I was probably a teenager, and just as an audience member. And I remember the fear I felt. And I couldn't even understand why. I'm like, I'm just sitting in the audience. Why am I scared? But then I started checking with other audience members, and everyone felt the same thing. We were all scared as I started to count down. But then I went years later to write for a week, and I got to wander around, and it started to hit me. I was like, oh, nothing's changed. And the more people we would interview, physically nothing changes. The turnover of people. I mean, there was people that we were interviewing that had literally been with the show since pretty much the beginning, like art department people who'd worked back from at least like episode 2 or 3. So I think there's a consistency, that there's a recipe that Lorne seems to believe in. And I think it's the reason why every other sketch show that's been popular comes down to the few people that were at the core of the cast, and yet there's something about the DNA of the show that allows brilliant people to come in and out of it. Writers, actors, musicians, like anything, but the recipe remains.
I think that Lorne Michaels never wavered. It should be an hour. It should be pre-tape. We should change the theme. We got to get rid of that song. We don't need for years and multiple administrations of overlords, he has stood the test of time. He really does believe in it. And these are the off-label things that I don't know, you would know, but basically when you take unknown people and you put them on a show, which right now there's unknown people who just got on Saturday Night Live. Yeah. It's a de facto reality show. You're watching them grow and get confident.
That's really
not.
Interesting.
So I believe, or putting a football player, Joe Montana is going to host a live 90-minute sketch show. So there's a reality element to it. So it's so compelling. And then the band plays, and they break big bands. And I got to see Roy Orbison and Neil Young standing there.
Wow.
And so then you have those moments. So I think you're right. It's the DNA of it. And Lorne never wavered. He's right now, because I'm watching your movie, and then I'm just flashing back to last week when Lorne would suddenly appear at 8H and you could tell he's uncomfortable with the way the rehearsals going. He's trying to think how to fix it. What should we change? So it's an extraordinary thing that it's a 50-year and going. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
I think people like, Jason, you're right about when they pull the camera back and they go to commercial and they start ripping down a set. And you're like, the set's that small? Or, anything. You just look, it's more you're learning. You're like, oh, it's right there in the front, or, oh, that set was over in the corner, and they all get up and sprint out. And that part is very cool to watch.
It's funny. So I grew up on sets. And I grew up just wanted to be on the trucks. Like I wanted to be one of the crew. I wanted to be one of the dudes. I loved that they would say off-color jokes, and I just wanted to hang. And when I watched SNL, I got a very early feeling that there is a brilliant ensemble in front of the camera. We're all aware of that. But there must be a brilliant ensemble behind the camera that's performing some sort of chaotic ballet that allows this show to exist. And when I got to see it in person, I couldn't fathom how you write all night Tuesday, you do the table read Wednesday, and then in the middle of the night on Wednesday, there's already someone painting a wall, hemming a dress, creating a wig, and then it goes right up to the last second. And it's the most thrilling thing I've ever been present for. And that's what I wanted. I wanted an audience to experience, like, because it's very easy for people at home to go like, I'm going to turn it on at 11:30 and see what they do. And then after be like, they did a good job, they did a bad job, or like whatever. And it is an extraordinary piece of choreography in front and behind the camera to pull off that show. And they are constantly bending the boundaries of what can be done on live television. And that started literally with the first episode.
And I think there are two things you captured really well. One is to your point about the crew. By the time the read through, you got some laughs there, and maybe you're not blocking Thursday, but you're blocking Friday, and you're kind of going by the crew, and the crew is often just casually kind of right.
Yeah, they're America.
You're running the lines, and there's silence, or
that's
there's
amazing.
5 or 10 Teamsters or just regular people laughing, and it gives you a little boost, And the other thing was watching the film. I want to give it away for the people who are going to watch it. You can't give it away because it's tactile. It's experiential.
You actually can't give this movie away. I already told everyone what the last line of the movie is, and that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah,
I loved the build up. Watching the build up to the tension. Is it going to go on? Or are they going to show a Carson rerun? I just love that. I love the Johnny Carson phone call. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. But at the last second, they're either going to go to Carson or go to what now has gone for 50 years. So you built that so beautifully. I was right in the moment, even though I knew what the answer was going to be. I was like, God damn, are they going to put Carson on? I'm riding that train emotionally.
Also, every single person is so invested on the show and the cast and crew to something that doesn't really matter yet. It's nothing. It's also, everyone's pretty defeated in a weird way because most people are saying, this is some dumb thing we're going to do. In 2 weeks, we're going to look for another job. And so you couldn't say to someone, now when you work on the show, you go, well, at least we have a job. At least this is picked up. At least there's a different vibe. But then it's like, why are we working this hard for this shit? And I love seeing the board of I love when Billy Crystal caught the board.
Right.
And he's like, holy shit. What do you, you can just eyeball it and say, that's a 3-hour show. Like,
just for the audience, the board today is where the sketches go up and they're honed down. There might be 10 or 12 of them. In Jason's movie, there's a board in the hallway on 8H, not up in Lorne's office, with like 50 sketches.
Yeah. 3 musical acts, a magic show. They're like, wait, who the fuck is getting cut? Because you know who's getting cut before you go in, but you're like, oh, wait, that guy was it. And they all treat Jim Henson like shit, which is funny. He's such a genius. And everyone's like, get the puppet guy out of my way. And then,
they stopped putting them in compromising positions. They would bend Big Bird over, Elma or whatever. Yeah, that was funny. One thing I wanted to ask you is like when you're watching it, and so they're right now, they don't know they're on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like I did 10 years later.
Yeah.
They know it's late. They're getting paid. Obviously they were found by each other. And they're smoking weed and rabble rousers, and they were sort of more aggressive than people would be now. In a way, they'd be more deferential because it wasn't a hit show, and they knew Lorne. Lorne was younger than Chevy Chase; he was a contemporary, a peer. So you captured that too. I mean, how much of that vibe was part of your thinking? The rebellious thing, especially Belushi.
I think it was Rosie Schuster who told us that what it felt like every night was that feeling if you broke into your high school. That if you broke into your high school over the weekend or overnight, and you're just running around and like you own the place, and that was echoed by everyone we talked to. That during the day, Rockefeller Center is an office building with people in suits, and then all of a sudden it's Thursday and it's 2 a.m. and Aykroyd somehow stole a set of keys and had literally a key to every door in the building. and they would just go and like, he just in the middle of the night, he'd go find fun places to go, find places to smoke out. He had found this one shaft on the 8th floor that if you open it, he could like exhale into it. And that was his way of smoking. But what I love is actually the idea that they were a bunch of kids and how young they were. That Aykroyd was 23 and Lorraine was 21 and Belushi was 26, and like they were genuinely kids. And I asked Aykroyd, it's like, what were you thinking right before you went on? And he said, I was thinking I still have a snowplow up in Toronto, so I had a job waiting for me. It's like,
He still likes that stuff. He's still very real dude like that. I mean,
oh my God, he'd rather talk about ghosts and things and paranormal. He lights up.
What a sweetheart.
By the way, tell me about it.
When those guys come by the show, Jason, when I was there, he'd come by like I interviewed Aykroyd for Spin magazine or something. They wanted to do like a collab, but first of all, couldn't be more generous and sweetheart.
He's Canadian,
but it's such a legendary thing when you're on the show and someone that used to be on that you'd watch comes through the hallways. And he comes in the office. Oh yeah, this is old Herb Sargent.
Don't be in a hurry to leave the show.
All right, sir. Fair enough, sir. Yeah,
he has an extraordinary memory, and everything's right on tap for him. And that was an interesting thing between people, because some people didn't remember anything, or they clearly would had made up 50% fabricated their history.
Yeah.
Aykroyd has an exceptional memory and will hold to it.
Oh yeah.
But it's weird now because now we've shown the movie to them. Like all these folks like that we interviewed have now watched the movie and watched themselves be like portrayed.
Nutty.
Like I sat in a screening with like Billy Crystal, revisiting like the worst night of his life.
Oh wow!
What was that like?
Yeah,
I'll just ask that.
I mean, it's what's interesting is so Billy obviously gets cut on opening night, and Billy Crystal has had about as successful a career as a human being can have.
Sure.
And he talks about that night like it happened yesterday. He gets
it still stings.
Emotional.
It has to sting. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so we were looking for a script from opening night. We kept on asking everyone we interviewed, because there was like a sketch that got cut that we always wanted to read, and we just want to know what it looked like. Nobody had it, not Lorne, not anybody. Finally, we asked Billy, hey, is there any chance you have a script from opening night? And he goes, I think I could find it. An hour later, I found it. So we go to his house. He pulls out the script, and he starts leafing through it, and he just goes, there. That's where I was supposed to be. And he's like deeply emotional.
Oh, it would kill me.
So we scan the script, and anytime someone has a script in the movie, it's Billy's script. Like a physical, like the physical script. Like anytime a character is like going through pages on scene, like
Billy's
in our
script.
movie, that's Billy's script that we scanned.
And he went back 3 years later and then had this killer year with Christopher Guest. And you look marvelous and all that stuff, Yeah, but still, that moment stinks.
Did he ask to see the movie, or did you ask if you could show it to him?
So this is what happens. So I've done 2 movies about real people, and this is what inevitably happens. Like you interview the original person. All they want to know is who's going to play them and if they're attractive and how tall they are. and then they watch the movie and they just can't figure it out. Like, there's just silence after. They're just freaked out by it. They're freaked out by watching themselves. It's emotional.
They're thrown back in time. It's like,
Billy was really into it. Lorraine loved it. Garrett loved it. I think for Garrett, it really was. I think Lamorne did an extraordinary job as him, and really.
I did too. He really kind of sounded like him. He kind of. That was like,
He was on this podcast and is very memorable as one of our favorite guests.
I mean, he's amazing.
I ran him 3 days ago at that thing, and he was sitting there. Oh, this guy. He was super sweet still.
I do impressions of people, and I do kind of have empathy for in terms of you with these actors and watching people play them. Is like, is that how people see me? It's a little vulnerable.
Oh,
is that
yeah.
The way? Am I missing the way the world sees me? So
I thought Lorne wasn't very pushed. I liked it. He wasn't like, no, they didn't. You guys didn't do that. It was very kind of thrown away because he's a little Canadian. He's got something, that's a little unique to Lorne. And back then it was a little softer. So I did like the guy that played him. I thought he did a great job.
He's the kid who played, Gabriel Loel played Spielberg in The Fabelmans. And so he's now played 2 of the most iconic Jews of all time. And I think there's something about Gabriel where he has this look in his eyes where if he has a vision, you know somehow he's going to accomplish it. And I don't think that's something you could teach somebody. I think he just has that. And
that tracks so beautifully throughout the whole film.
He was
Lorne
viable,
is
yeah.
Where's Waldo of the film, the Lorne character. Like, oh, what is he thinking right now? And nonverbal acting is just a skill set that some people have. I think Michael Keaton's naturally gifted at it,
Right.
and Gabriel, he is too. No lines, just looking at a board and thinking, you really wrote it with him, that character, I think.
For each character at the end of the day, I tried to identify just one thing as far as the casting. So, with Chevy, it was an ego that needs to be humbled. With Belushi, it's a guy who thinks that somehow going on television will be the end of his life. For Gilda, it's obviously the overwhelming empathy. For
Charm.
Garrett, it was who am I? Like, what's my identity? Who the hell? And by getting down to that one idea, instead of it being an impersonation, it became, all right, this is the one thing. This is what the one thing you want in this film. And it just gave him something to chase.
Did Belushi really? I heard Belushi didn't like the bees. That's true, right? But did he really have a problem with that? He's sort of a bigger actor than the show. Or I wouldn't think that of him. I would think he's just a goofball.
This is what I understood is one. He wouldn't sign his contract, and he went missing on opening night, and he definitely had animosity with Chevy. And I think the reason was really clear. What was brilliant about that first show is that no one looked like anyone on television. Belushi didn't look like someone who should be on television. Gilda did not look like someone who should be on television. And Chevy did. And
Chevy did, yeah.
I think what upset Belushi was that when you look at who Belushi was on stage at Second City and in the National Lampoon show, he was a star, and he had found a place where he could 100% be himself and people would respect his genius. And now he was going to be on television, and Belushi knew Chevy's going to be a star. And the network kind of identified that from moment one. And Chevy knew it. And Chevy was like, this is where I'm going to get my win. That's why, we have his line in the movie where he's like, oh, is this an ensemble? So I think that's
also,
what Belushi's on mine.
It was revealed, obviously, later on. I guess it was obvious in the beginning that you're at home base in 8H. That means you're in the center of the studio. You really can play to the audience and the camera. It's the perfect position to be in, where Chevy was. And then you're going right to the audience, and you can drop little ad libs in. You can break out character a bit, stuff like that. So, and then, obviously he broke so hard. I was just going to ask you quickly about two subsidiary characters that people wouldn't be household names: Michael O'Donoghue, and Rosie Schuster, who helped me put together Church Chat. So I was interested what a big part of that year she was as Lorne's wife. Their relationship was shaky or something.
Well,
at that point.
I fell in love with Rosie, as everyone does. All I'd been hearing was that everyone falls in love with Rosie, and then Gil's my writing partner. We got on the phone with Rosie, and I think we wanted to fight after the call. We just felt so head over heels for her, and she was so funny. She was easily the of all the heavyweights we spoke to, she was easily the funniest person we spoke to, who just consistently made us laugh and said things out of nowhere that were highly original. And what I think really interesting about her was that, look, this cast this group of writers and cast are challenging all these social mores and the way that they're doing television, the way they do comedy, but also for Lorne and Rosie, who their marriage is coming apart, they're seeing other people, they're still married to each other, they're working with each other, that they were taking this 1970s nuanced look at love, where it's like, she's fucking Danny, they're still married, but they respect the fact that they make each other better. And that's all that counts. Like, they make each other funnier. They make a better show together. They support each other. They understand each other. And who gives a shit? And Lorne didn't give a shit. And that was really clear in speaking to everybody.
That was the hippies day or whatever. The new kind of looking at everything, basically, days, including comedy.
And I think that's what's so cool about that moment is you have a young people who are going, we don't have to do it the same way that anyone else has done it before. And that's kind of what the movie is about. It's about the moment where one generation just rips television out of the hands of another because they say, your time is done. That's why we have Milton Berle in the movie. Milton Berle is there representing an entire generation of old TV that this group goes, no, I'm sorry, we're done with you.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant, because I read it, it wasn't exactly true. J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle is magnificent. The character's hilarious.
Well, Milton exposing himself is true. He may not have exposed himself to Chevy, but he exposed himself to a bunch of other people.
I think he wanted,
so he was
wanted that out there.
constantly exposing himself to people. It's hysterical.
I mean, so the first person we heard about was Zweibel, and he had exposed himself to Zweibel in someone's dressing room.
Chambers.
And then the more we talked to people, the more people I would find out, even Jeff Ross. Jeff Ross came to our premiere, and after he goes, "Oh yeah, Milton showed me his dick. I didn't get May 2, I got May 22. That's how big it was."
Well, I mean, to have him in there, and also I wasn't quite sure. I may have lost track of it.
I love when Spade doesn't like a joke. He's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna let you know how much I don't like that joke."
Me just now? No, I like that the guys with the big dicks want to show everybody. That's so funny. My friend used to accidentally send his huge dick picture to girls and go, "Oh my God, sorry, not for you." And they're like, "No, that's okay."
Well, I just think of hydraulics. I mean, there was a prosthesis in your show, and it's like you're extrapolating where. How does that really get to a place of excitement? It seems like it's just too much weight to lift.
It's very funny. This is a very naturalistic movie. We shot on 16 millimeter. We tried to do everything old school. There's only 2 visual effects in the film, and one of them was retouching Milton's penis to make sure that the skin color and shine match JK's skin.
only in the movies. And as far as Rosie Schuster being there in 86 and being assigned to me, I had a church lady character for my stand-up to develop it. I didn't know she was his ex-wife, and I noticed that she would always call him dear in meetings. Yes, dear.
I love that.
Oh, dear. I know. That. Yeah, she called him
She
dear.
was good in the movie.
Oh, well, Rachel Sennett
that actress is great.
She's off the charts. Yeah. I mean, I don't know of another actor who's had as strong a debut. When you think about her first 3 films, Shiva Baby, Bodies, 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 and Bottoms. I mean, it just lights out good, and she's a killer.
Yeah, she was charming.
Yeah, she seemed just in the pocket, totally natural.
And Michael O'Donoghue, who you brought up earlier, obviously is one of the reasons why the show was genius from day one. Is that, again, I think that's this other thing about Lorne is his understanding that a show could hold the tone of Jim Henson and kind of the delight of like a comedian like Zweibel with the dark nastiness of O'Donoghue, and knew that somehow this is a show that's going to occupy enough space where all these voices can live together. And Tommy Doo is the guy who played O'Donoghue, and that's a really tricky role. I think that's one of those things where from the outside, you don't see how hard it is to be able to say that kind of nasty shit and still be a likable character. And there's very few actors. Like Billy Bob was someone, Billy Bob Thornton was a guy who he could literally say anything and you still like the guy. And it's such a tricky thing to do.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, we had heard.
Well, Lorne is very clever about that. I don't really know how his brain works, but it's at a high level of really absorbing. The thing I say as I came back to the young people, but Lorne's an AI who's downloaded the show. So it's so he can blink stuff. He can look at something and kind of go, well, if they're supposed to be older, we have to make them older, or whatever. There's the essence of things very quickly. We'll figure out what's wrong, what might be better. And you see him, I've been there many times when the show's a little flat, and I can tell he's a little wounded, but going to go on to the next one. And then when it goes well, he's just a little lighter, but it's an intense life to do what he's done, and is still doing it, and is going to keep doing it after the 50th.
What
newsflash?
I was about to. You just dropped that like it was nothing. I'm curious with both of you. Do you remember early moments where you understood why Lorne picked you? Did it ever become clear as oh, this is what he saw in me, and this is why he knew I was special?
David, I'll let you go first.
I wasn't a big character guy. I just did stand up, and I think he liked the way it was written, even though I wasn't even a headliner. And when I got there, I was a little over my head, more than a normal over your head, because I wasn't writing sketches for characters, and I wasn't doing crazy stuff. And that wasn't something that was on my even radar. That it was so high above me that from Arizona, I couldn't think, oh, one day I should be on SNL. It didn't even cross my mind. I was saying I should be like a manager at Bennigan's, That was like the ceiling. And so when you get at the highest place and you're the lowest level, it was hard. And I was always feeling about getting fired and when obviously he was having some troubles, especially the first couple of years. But when we had Lorne on, he goes, and by the way, David, you were never in danger of getting fired. And I was like, it's just weird to hear him say that because that's all you're thinking for 6 years. And just have him say it out loud because it was a little rocky road, but got through it. But shit, I was just like, oh, I don't know what he saw. Maybe it just didn't look like everyone. You don't know what. I wasn't a huge jumping off the page guy.
But he did say also during the podcast, I always knew you were funny. Which is high praise from the guy who's seen
it's nice to hear just that simply.
Wait,
I always knew you were
follow-up
funny.
question.
Yeah.
Is there a person who makes you more nervous when you answer the phone and someone goes, I have Lorne Michaels for you?
Oh,
is there
sickening.
any person who would actually make you more, or is that the person who would make you the most nervous hearing, oh, he's on the other line?
It definitely is
bad.
Something that you might avoid.
Especially if you're there and you're part of it, it's the ultimate boss going, oh my God, the Godfather's calling. Or when
even to this day, though, I'm saying even to this day.
I can see if they go, Lorne wants you to come up.
I feel like Lorne's emotional interface. I'm just making up these words. I'm just more used to it this time around. Yeah. So I kind of want to give him a hug and tell him a joke and be silly. But for years when I was on the show, because Lorne had this thing walking down the hallway, still with the show, that kind of stuff. And
you're still here.
He was intimidating. I mean, he had told somebody recently that he had to create sort of a wall between himself and the cast, or else they would have eaten him alive.
Right.
So yeah, he's an intimidating character. But if you go to the Yankee game, he's kind of. I mean, yeah, he's an eclectic personality. There's sort of the elusive Lorne and erudite Lorne, and then there's the guy who wants to get a hot dog and go to the game. So
also that stuff, you're not as fearful now because you did it, and so now I just like to see Lorne and laugh with him and try to make him laugh and goof around
as much as possible. Yeah. But you feel like he's so observant and so smart that he can just see right through you, right? And he kind of knows where you're going wrong. Never leave a hit. He always has these lessons, never leave a hit. On what happened to me was so unusual and bizarre and just happenstance that I had done the church lady character in my act, but I was doing 70 minutes of stand-up and it was just a few minutes of it. And so then decided to make it into a talk show with Rosie Schuster, and then it just scored huge. And it was an accident. I didn't know it was great that it was a talk show on home base. I didn't know it was great that my character's funny and also Phil Hartman and Sigourney Weaver could come on and be funny. And I had Jan Hooks and Phil Hartman scoring. So I figured out at some point, that's what Lorne loves. It's a sketch that at home base, a reoccurring character with a catchphrase, and then guests can come on and be funny as well.
Right.
Yeah. And then I did Chop and Broccoli, that show, and a few other things. So I didn't have groundlings up in San Francisco. So I just was a sketch player doing stand-up. And in the small rooms, it would work, and the bigger rooms would be harder. So I didn't really know I was a sketch player. But when I got on there, I figured out, well, this is where I belong, doing characters and sketch. But I was trying to do it as a stand-up. So that was a freakitude to have that right up front.
Is there anyone these days that you fight for to laugh more than Lorne? Like, is there a person that you try to make laugh more than Lorne? Or that you feel the win more when they laugh more than Lorne?
No. My first show back doing these little sets of shows, I was reading Biden in the read through, and I didn't really have it, but it was kind of coming on to me, this Biden non sequitur thing. And guess what? And by the way, the fact of the matter is, and so I was throwing it in. It wasn't in the little draft of the script. I just throwing it in. And I saw Lorne's shoulders going up and down because that means he's really in the corner of my eye. And so that was a big, when the shoulders go, It's,
the read-through laugh of Lorne is unreal. Like when you're on the show and everything matters and you're at read-through and you wrote a sketch and it's your lines and you're saying it, and then you see him just buy into the sketch and start cracking up or slap the table. You're like, holy shit. Oh my God. This is crazy.
So the week I was there, I wrote 3 sketches.
That's a lot.
No. They didn't make it. I did for the table.
It's a lot of writing though. It's hard to do.
Yeah, but I've been wanting to do this for decades, and this is my one chance. Like, trust me, I had stuff in the so I made so many rookie mistakes, not realizing, oh fuck, like that's never going to work at the table read, and he's going to be reading all the stage directions, and there's multiple locations. Why did I do that? Just all these things.
Too many sets. Oh yeah, I made that mistake.
Oh, God, I wanted so many do-overs. I got a sketch on, but oh my God, that.
Who was your host that week?
Ashton Kutcher was the host. Gnarls Barkley was the musical guest. And now you know exactly when it took place.
Sure. It's great though. Well, how fun.
To your point, Lorne is like a coach, and if you were a high jumper, right, in high school.
How the hell do you know that? Who slipped you that weird piece of paper?
I wasn't. It must be you.
I just at least had a perfunctory look at your Wikipedia page. I assume we would mostly talk about this, but I love track and field, and I remember Dick Fosbury and stuff like that. But Lorne is like a coach that you want to please. And I had a button-down coach when I was in high school. Very not big with the praise. You'd have to just go fantastic. But Lorne, he would just give you a little. If you dismantled the room, like really scored, you might walk by him and he would just tap your shoulder and give a little pat.
Yeah.
And kind of nod his head. And that was like a huge win, right, David? If you kind of acknowledge.
I think 3 years, and I did one Hollywood Minute at read through, and he turns the sketch, he goes, next sketch, and he goes, I think you found your voice. All right, we're going to do Wayne's World. Wow. And I was like, and then 2 weeks later in the hallway, he goes, maybe Hollywood Minute this week? I go, fuck. You're asking me to do a sketch? Oh my God. Fuck yeah.
David, that must have been extraordinary.
Oh man,
I was like, goosebumps. By the way, I was just talking about the rare gift to say cruel things and for people to love you for it. And it's like, you're literally one of the handful of human beings on earth who can do that. And you can say these things and people love you for it. And like you can't teach that. It's just in the DNA.
I'm not really a mean person. That's the funniest part of the whole thing. It's like, you just think of these jokes and goes, oh, that'd be funny. But you're not like, I fucking hate these people. You just go.
Isn't that the truth? Like when you think about the few people who do this, like if the few greats who are like, they know how to just cut you to the bone and be funny. Most of those people are not mean people. Like Don Rickles is not a mean person. Jeff Ross is not a mean person.
Yeah.
No, both. Yeah.
Like the real assholes are not funny. Like they're just dicks.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's because you always have to find the fine line where it's not too rough. And sometimes I would go too deep and caught myself at dress or something. Going, I don't think they're going to buy that. That's.
Well, when Chevy came on this podcast, I'd seen him I knew enough of seeing him over the years. And he was very generous to me when I was at Lorne Michaels' house before I got on the show, but I was out there and he loved my audition tape, saw something in me. But Chevy loves to say the thing you're not supposed to say.
Yeah.
To the extreme, where it can go wherever it wants to go.
I have an example for you. And I've known Chevy my entire life. I grew up,
that's right.
Like with his kids and stuff, and like
the funniest Americans ever created.
And so Chevy comes in to watch the movie, and he's there with Janie, and they watch the film, and he's in the group, and he comes up to me after, and he pats me on the shoulder and goes, "Well, you should be embarrassed."
What a exact Chevy thing. You couldn't even write it better.
Yeah,
how funny.
Well, he knows that's funny. Like, okay, that's the roughest thing you could say to a director in that moment, right up there.
And
all right,
and I'm trying to balance it. I'm trying to balance it because like in my head, I know, all right, I'm getting a Chevy Chase moment that's 1,000% only for me right now. Mm-hmm. And from a comedy point of view, that's really pure. And that's kind of cool. But also, I just spent like 2 years of my life recreating this moment so that, and trying to capture Chevy perfectly. And also, even in the ego, find the humanity and give him a moment to be loved. No, none of that shit played. Right. He's not talking about that stuff.
It's a funny thing to say. But then you got to look at the meter and go, what percentage was real? Was it all a joke? Or was there a little bit he's not happy, but you just don't know and he leaves and you go, well, he saw it.
I think the key is if you can, I just say yes to everything. he at one point he goes, I had a way bigger career than you guys. And we both went, of course you did. So if you go back in time, he says, you should be embarrassed. I'm completely humiliated.
Yeah.
And then the air goes out of the balloon. Then he's more like, hey, it wasn't that bad, But you always say yes. Have you seen my cock? And he would go like this, like, was it 100 times?
Yeah.
And then he would go like that.
We went on video, which is horrible because everyone he was so funny with all his visual craziness. Dana, we're going to we have to wrap up with Jason, who's a fucking stud, but we
Jason
just
Reitman.
mention his great other things he does. We won't go into them totally, but we so people know.
Junos,
the Up in the Air was great.
Is this
Young
when you
adult,
do it at the end of the show? You're like, oh, by the way, this is who this guy was?
No, we're
going to introduce you separately.
We're going to introduce you and say all this, but
I want you to hear that I love Young
This
adult.
went full Saturday Night Live. I thought it could have been about your high jumping in high school. Apparently,
it could have been how you frequent STK in Hollywood, but we didn't want to spend the whole time on that. That's in your Wikipedia also.
By the way, William Dafoe too. Loved every minute of William Dafoe as Dave Tibbett.
I don't think I've ever been to STK. That's exciting.
Frequents Los Angeles Stakeout STK, as does Channing Tatum.
Does it really say
references?
Swear.
By the way, that's a really interesting way to do advertising. I never thought of that, but anyone can update a Wikipedia. You could just go to the most famous
slide
person
in at your favorite restaurant. Yes, that's hysterical.
You just so if you own a restaurant, you're just going to be like, and Beyonce,
always seen at Cheesecake Factory. Yeah.
The problem, which I've said before, is if people hear something, they have a hard time thinking it's utterly untrue. So on the Wikipedia page, it said I had a previous wife named Leah. It's probably still there. So people would go, so you were married before Paula to a woman named Leah? No, it's all made up. Well, you must have known someone named Leah. Nope, It's all made up. But you must have had someone before, no, it's a 100% some nerd in a room and it's still there, so.
I did it to myself, Dan. I said I collected gerbils. We just put it in one time. And then it was such a mistake because in the middle of heavy interviews, they're like, my son has a gerbil. And I go, I don't give a fuck. And they're like, but don't you love you? And now, when did that start? I go, what? I forget. I go, oh, right. I got to get that out of there. Right. It was like for one laugh.
That's Richard Gere. Remember the gerbil up the butt? And people would go, well, he must have had at least pet
same
gerbils.
rumor, but yeah.
He must have sat on a gerbil. Nope. It's all made up.
Dave.
No, but come on.
David, this is not going to turn out well.
I know, right? I just did it again. Dana, thank you. Jason, you're a stud.
Thanks,
aside
David,
from everything else
Jason,
you've done.
Nice hanging out.
I love talking about SNL like that. And what a fun movie to watch and just be thrown back into that crazy world. Did a great job.
One last thing before we go. The Franken and Davis characters really made me laugh.
You know what's great? So those two actors, they did something I hadn't experienced before. They auditioned together. And that's what made it work. They already knew each other. And so they just did the bit together. And it was like, oh, I believe them as a duo. And I was like, why don't more actors do this? That was so smart.
Now, that Julia Child bit, did you see, I don't know if you saw the movie, but at the beginning, there, it's chaos, and they show on the side.
nice, David.
They show on the side Franken and Davis. Just one of the crazy things is one of the most memorable sketches of all time. Julia Child. Yeah. They just walk by. We got this thing we just want to do. It's blood, and Lorne's like, sounds great. Moves on, and you're like, oh my god, that's everyone knows.
There's a lot of detail. So for a big SNL fan, which I'm presuming your listeners are way bigger fans than I am. Yeah, they. Like we have colon blow in there. Like there's all sorts of little details that if you start looking in the background and stuff, there's all kinds of fun stuff.
Colon
and then
blow
obviously
Easter eggs, because colon blow was 10, 12 years later.
That was when I was there with Phil. God damn, what a great one.
It again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jason. What a stud.
Yeah.
What a stud.
Thanks, Jason.
I'll talk to you later.
Enjoyed it. Bye.
This has been a presentation of Audacy. Please follow, subscribe, leave a like, a review, all this stuff. Smash that button, whatever it is, wherever you get your podcasts. Fly on the Wall is executive produced by Dana Carvey and David Spade, Jenna Weiss-Berman of Audacy, and Heather Santoro. The show's lead producer is Greg Holtzman.